I think SEBI as a regulator already is there, and they are being quite mindful of trying to govern a new sector.
It's great, and what Nykaa has done is just democratize access.
Some of the valuations floating around for startups where there is clearly no business model and there is no path to profitability do require a correction.
One of the most incredible stories, one of the most looked up sort of women in business today, Falguni Nair. So very warm welcome to you, and thank you for making time. I've seen a lot of interviews that she's done, and I think one of the most interesting things about Nykaa is that both Adwaita and Anchit are such a big part of the Nykaa journey. And so I asked, and I thought it'd be a nice idea to get both of them to join, and I'm so excited that they're both here.
This increasing tussle perhaps when it comes to, the market expectations from these companies and what the companies expect from the market. There seems to be some sort of a wrangling there. There's already a debate on that, not just in terms of valuations and profitability, but also, things like conducting analyst meets or putting out metrics in the public domain that are perhaps different from what companies might pitch to the VCs. How do you see that? Is the sort of debate that is on these metrics?
I personally feel that you must try to share more information with the investor community so that they can make certain right choices. However, companies like us are, we have a lot of data. We have data driven and we have a lot of data. And sometimes all the data cannot be put in public domain because, there are monthly differences in the numbers. There are reasons for those differences, or, investors may not understand, what are the reasons for those differences. Also, there is information that may be very competitive in the sense that why would you share how many customers you exactly acquired in a quarter? It's a competitive information that you're putting it out there, So there are reasons for not sharing too much information. I do not justify what others are doing. I think our own effort is going to be more about sharing as much as we can share in a safe manner, so that investors who have chosen to invest or may choose to invest can make a reasonable decisions based on that information.
Zomato is not willing to do analyst meets now, and again, it's a very different. It seems completely opposite from your philosophy as a tech publicly listed company. You're seeing the mess that's happening in BharatPe. Is there a need for some kind of policy intervention with tech startups in India?
I can't speak for themselves. I think SEBI is quite vigilant, or they want to be quite on top of it. At least with what we saw with our own document, they were quite thorough, and I would have expected them to be similarly thorough for other companies. So I can't speak for them. I can't speak for other companies because I don't have visibility in it. But I think SEBI as a regulator already is there, and they are being quite mindful of trying to govern a new sector.
I'd like to get Anchit and Adwaita's views also on, where they see future of tech startups. I had a conversation with Nikhil Kamath, I think about 6 months ago, and he said the valuations of all tech startups are, he used the word stupid, including the valuation that he's been offered. As people who I think, I know people our age, Adwaita and Anchit, are, I feel a lot of FOMO sometimes as an investor, as an entrepreneur as well, looking at these kind of valuations. I know you all don't feel that FOMO, but do you see that? Do you see a need for a correction, or do you think that this is all justified?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think what we've always believed here at Nykaa is that eventually, the buck has to end with someone. The buck has to end sometime. Businesses have to transition to delivering meaty profitability. And so I think, just being in the trenches of trying to build Nykaa, we found that it is actually so difficult to build a business at scale with, reasonable profitability. that, my own personal opinion is some of the valuations floating around for startups where there is clearly no business model and there is no path to profitability do require a correction. And I think now, having been on the other side, seeing the Nykaa valuation and the way it's rising and the correction in the last couple of months as well, you realize that valuation is just one piece of the pie. The amount of hard work behind the scenes to actually transition your business into being sustainable, profitable, sizable is just so much. So I think there's a disconnect between valuation and just the amount of work that's actually required to build. And so I think even for us internally, we're just trying to stay heads down, focused on what we're trying to build. We know the long-term EBITDA profile that we need to get to. And we're not really getting smitten by valuations, not looking at valuations so closely.
Sure. Anchit?
Yeah, look, I have a slightly different point of view. My point of view is that these are all new age businesses. And the reality is, see, I'm not an investor. We're operators, right? We run businesses. So I can't comment on, finally the market, it's an efficient market, right? I mean, you have to believe that to even play the game, to invest in the market. So, I mean, look, the valuations are what they are because it's a demand and a supply thing. So I can't comment. I've not run DCFs and I've not done all of the thorough analysis that probably needs to be done to make a kind of statement like that about anyone else's business. Okay, I have a lot of respect for the businesses that everyone is building today. From a consumer point of view, these are very useful businesses. This is the future. Whether it's Nykaa, whether it's Paytm, whether it's Zomato, these businesses are becoming part of the consumer's life, and they will be for the coming decades. So I think there are investors who see that, and they probably attribute a certain valuation and premium to that. So I'll leave that to the investors. What we can say is that India has such an awesome opportunity here to create some of the most high-tech, digitally first giants for the future. And I think that's such an amazing opportunity we have because the talent in this country is unbelievable. The risk-taking ability, the entrepreneurs, and also the government support and the regulator support is there. So I think India has a chance to build the giants of the future. And this, in a digital world, these companies are going toe-to-toe with the best globally. I don't know from a valuation perspective, but from the way they do business, the way we serve customers. I mean, I think the consumer in India is so fortunate to have these companies, really revolutionizing the country. So I can't speak to valuation. I'm not a professor of finance. I'm not a hedge fund analyst. But what I can tell you is there is definitely some value here that, of course, investors are seeing. Otherwise, this is smart money. This is not dumb money, right? So if the valuations are what they are, I mean, for us as participants, as a company listed on the exchange, I guess it is what it is. And we, as Advaita said, we don't focus on it day to day. We don't look at our share price. We just worry on our own numbers. We worry about the consumer, and we worry about the service that we're providing to our customers.
What are the differences that you would find between a Indian consumer of Nykaa versus a Los Angeles consumer at Sephora? I know Sephora is a company that keeps coming up when we talk about Nykaa as a company I think that Falguni ji looked up to. Are there any similarities and differences that you can share with us as headlines?
No, I mean, of course, right? I mean, you look at all the data, Anand, it tells you that India is very, very early in its beauty consumption journey. The per capita spend on BPC in India is only $14 annually. That number is close to $300, $400 in the West, and it's somewhere around $75 to $100 in China. So, in fact, if you look at the data, it tells you that today where India is in terms of its consumption journey in BPC is where China was exactly 15 years ago in 2006. So, I mean, yeah, there's a total difference in terms of the purchasing power, the awareness, the education from a small town consumer in India versus that in LA, in New York, in the US. And I think that is what excites us so much, that we've been able to build a business of our scale when we're so early on in our journey as a country. So the opportunity is massive. The addressable market is growing leaps and bounds. It's a 13% CAGR over the next 5 years for the overall business, overall BPC market. Within that, e-commerce is going to grow at 30% plus CAGR. You don't see these kind of growth numbers anywhere else in the world. And so that's why we as retailers are so excited about the opportunity in this country. So there's so much work for us to do. And I'm glad that you saw people wearing makeup in rural Punjab. And I would even venture to say they may have bought it on Nykaa because they don't have access to physical department stores and other retail there. So, we ship to 19,000 pin codes across the country. We do, over 2 million plus orders in a month. I mean, it's possible that, so I think it's great. And what Nykaa has done is just democratize access, right? Before Nykaa, you had to live in a town where you had a department store or you had a local retail outlet. So Nykaa, by taking beauty online and also by giving the trust and authenticity and finally also educating the consumer on exactly what they need, as opposed to just being a horizontal marketplace that doesn't give any curation or any guidance. I think we're going to help shape this industry for many years to come.
Sure.
I think I wanted to jump in here. I mean, I think the one thing that strikes me when I think about the Indian market versus, the US market is Indian market is just really, really, really small. And I think I sometimes just do this exercise to look up, American brands and what kind of sales potential and what kind of sales are they doing. And, you'll find that these, like just the Gap globally is doing more sales than our largest e-commerce platforms in the country.
Right.
So there's just no comparison of the consumption in the US to India still, is my honest opinion. When you compare our biggest brands in the country, they're 1/10th, 1/15th, a medium-sized brand in the US.
And Phalguni,
So all that tells us that there's a lot of potential. We are a big believer in the Indian retail consumption story, and particularly for lifestyle products like beauty and fashion. We think these are such early days, and all the ingredients include like education. These are also aspirational categories. So aspirational on fashion, we talk about being on trend and wanting that additional fashion product rather than being happy with what you have. So I think these are aspirational categories. And we also believe that these are small pleasures, small luxuries. And as a result, they're not as impacted and affordability is quite wide at certain level.
Clearly from the start, Nykaa's focus has been on women, and perhaps deservedly so because they're much bigger spenders than men. But this decision to start a new range for men, how's that faring? How are the men doing on Nykaa?
So I'll take it.
Was that Anchit's decision or was it pre-Anchit?
No, I think the decision is quite simple and it has grown in size and scale. So we realized that while we had all the products that men would like to buy from grooming perspective on our Nykaa.com website, it was very big on makeup, cosmetics, which predominantly are used by women. And because that was a big business, it ended up looking like it was a site meant for women. And men also, we realized, so of course, it wasn't difficult for men to find their grooming products, but we also found that men like to operate in a safer environment where they don't want to go wrong selecting a unisex product, which they don't think is meant for men. So while it is unisex, they would like to know, but is it suitable for men, within that? So we realized that if we were to put this grooming catalog separate, that would be a better way for men to shop. And it was with that objective that we started Nykaa Man. But as we did that, we realized that men also they shop differently than women. Women like to go to very dedicated store for everything, like a beauty store, a fashion store, or something else, wellness store. Whereas I think men like to buy everything like in that one store. So we started extending our Nykaa Man platform to fashion and slowly into tech accessories, which saw a big demand during the COVID times. And that's where we are with obviously much now men being the center of our attention and their desires being center of what we want to offer to them on that platform.